Hey everyone, and welcome. Today we're taking a deep dive into French idioms and colloquialisms.
Those everyday expressions that really bring the language to life.
Exactly. You can study all the grammar rules in the world.
But it's the idioms and slang that really let you connect with the culture.
Absolutely. And I think that's why so many of you are exploring this topic in Pronunciator's Library module.
Especially if you're working towards that certificate.
Right. So we're going to unpack some of the most colorful and fun expressions.
Ones that you might hear on the streets of Paris in a French film.
Or even just chatting with a friend.
And we'll talk about how these phrases can add depth and richness to your conversations.
So let's jump right in. I think a great place to start is with expressions about cost and value.
Oh, definitely. Money talks, as they say.
And in French, it talks with a lot of flair. Like, imagine you're at a market and you see something you love.
But the vendor tells you it's coûte les yeux de la tête.
The eyes in your head.
Exactly. Means it costs an arm and a leg.
Wow, so even in French, we're willing to part with body parts for something we really want.
It seems like a universal feeling, doesn't it? That sticker shock.
It really does. But then on the flip side, what if you find an amazing deal?
Then you might say, c'est donné.
Which literally translates to,
It's given. But in this context, it means it's a steal.
so you could be walking away with a bargain and feeling like you got away with something.
Exactly. Speaking of getting away, let's talk about time.
Ooh, time flies when you're speaking French.
It really does. And the French have some very specific ways of expressing the passage of time.
Like,
Well, you can use the phrase EYA to talk about something that happened in the past.
il y a meaning.
Year ago. So you could say il y a longtemps for a long time ago.
Or il y a peu de temps for a short time ago.
Exactly. And then there's the more colloquial, ça fait un bail.
Which is like saying,
It's been ages.
so perfect for catching up with old friends.
Absolutely. Now, are you ready for some animal idioms?
Oof, always. I love how many languages use animal imagery in their expressions.
It's like we're all drawing from the same well of shared experiences.
So, what's a good French example?
Well, how about avoir un chat dans la gorge?
To have a cat in your throat? Is that like our frog in the throat?
Exactly. It means you're feeling hoarse or unable to speak clearly.
Makes sense. It's interesting how different cultures choose different animals for the same feeling.
And sometimes the animals are the same, like with appeler un chat,
Which means,
to call a spade a spade.
oh, so it's about being straightforward and honest.
Exactly.
Okay.
No sugarcoating in this case,
But then there are idioms like acheter chat en poche.
which literally means to buy a cat in a bag.
I have no idea what that could mean figuratively.
It means to buy something without really knowing what it is.
Kind of like our buying a pig in a poke.
Exactly. A warning against making hasty decisions.
So even in idioms, there are little nuggets of wisdom.
Absolutely. They offer a glimpse into the values and beliefs of a culture.
So fascinating. I feel like we could talk about this all day.
Me too. But we've got to save some for later.
Right, we're just getting started with our deep dive.
Stay tuned because we've got plenty more idioms to uncover.
And plenty more ways to help you bring your French to life.
See you soon,
Welcome back to our deep dive into the world of French idioms.
where we're uncovering the hidden gems of everyday French.
And trust me, there are some real treasures to be found.
Oh, absolutely. We were just talking about those expressions that help us describe how we're feeling.
Right, like when you're feeling a little down in the dumps.
Ah, yes. Well, instead of saying feeling blue, the French might say avoir le cafard.
Avoir le cafard. What does that mean?
Literally, it means to have the cockroach.
Oh, yuck. Not exactly a cheerful image.
No, not at all. But it captures that feeling of gloom pretty well, don't you think?
Yeah, like a little bug of sadness crawling around inside you.
Speaking of feeling down, remember that idiom we touched on before about trying to please everyone? Ménager la chèvre et le chou.
Oh, yeah. Managing the goat and the cabbage. That was a tough one to wrap my head around.
It's like trying to keep everyone happy, even when their needs conflict.
A delicate balancing act, for sure. Sometimes it feels like you're herding cats.
Or goats and cabbages, as the case may be. But hey, sometimes you just can't please everyone.
That's life, right? Full of compromises and tricky situations.
Exactly. Now, what about when you're feeling a bit rebellious? Maybe a little mischievous?
Well, I'm thinking back to my school days.
Well, the French have a delightful idiom for playing hooky, faire l'école buissonnière.
L'école buissonnière.
Yeah.
That sounds kind of cute. What does it mean?
Literally, to do bush school. Like you're skipping class to have adventures in the woods.
I love that. Way more charming than just saying skip school.
Right. It captures that sense of youthful freedom and exploration.
Okay, but what about those times when you're dealing with someone who just can't get to the point?
Ah, yes. The roundabout talkers.
The ones who beat around the bush.
Well, in French, they would tourner autour du pot.
Tourner autour du pot. To turn around the pot.
Exactly. Like you're circling the issue without ever really addressing it directly.
Okay, I can see how that would get frustrating.
Definitely. Now let's talk about those folks who seem to have it all, the lucky ones living the good life.
The ones who are always winning the lottery, metaphorically speaking.
Well, the French would say they are comme un coq en pâte.
Comme un coq en pâte. Like a rooster in dough.
Exactly. It paints this image of a pampered rooster surrounded by soft, pillowy dough.
So basically living a life of luxury and ease.
Precisely. And now for a bit of fun, let's talk about those who tend to embellish the truth.
You mean tell tall tales?
In a way, the French idiom for this is raconter des salades.
Raconter des salades. To tell salads. What's that all about?
It means to tell lies or to exaggerate the truth, to spin a yarn that's full of holes.
Ah, so it's their way of saying someone's full of baloney.
Precisely. Okay, now this is one we can all relate to. Complaining.
Oh yeah, we all know those people who love to grumble.
The chronic complainers. In French, they râler pour rien.
Râler pour un rien. To grumble for nothing.
Exactly. Complaining just for the sake of complaining.
It's a good reminder to try and focus on the positive, right?
Absolutely. Always look for the silver lining.
Okay, to end on a more inspiring note, is there a French idiom that encourages us to seize the day?
I think croquer la vie à pleines dents captures that perfectly.
Croquer la vie à pleines dents. I love how that sounds. What does it mean?
To bite into life with full teeth.
Wow. That's so powerful. Embrace every experience, right?
Exactly. Life is meant to be lived to the fullest. Now, before we wrap things up, there's one more idiom I want to share.
Okay, hit me with it.
It's enfoncer des portes ouvertes. To break down open doors.
To break down open doors. I'm intrigued.
It's used when someone is stating the obvious or trying to prove a point that's already widely accepted.
Like they're trying to force their way in when the door's already wide open.
Exactly. It's a way of saying, we get it, you can stop now.
I like that. A subtle way to tell someone they're overdoing it.
So we explored a whole range of idioms today, from the funny to the philosophical.
And I bet our listeners are feeling a lot more confident about using them in their own conversations.
I hope so, because that's what it's all about.
Bringing French to life. So we've covered a lot of ground, haven't we? From eyes in your head to roosters and dough.
And let's not forget those salads people like to tell.
Right? It's amazing how much you can express with just a few well-chosen idioms.
They really do add that extra layer of nuance and humor to the language.
And I think that's what makes them so much fun to learn.
Absolutely. But I know some of you might be thinking, okay, this is great, but how do I actually use these idioms in real life?
Especially if you're still getting comfortable with French grammar.
That's a great question. And I think the key is to start small.
Don't try to memorize every idiom under the sun.
Exactly. Pick a few that really resonate with you and try working them into your conversations.
Maybe start with the ones that have a clear equivalent in your native language.
Like, appeler un chat, to call a spade.
That one's easy to remember, and it's always relevant.
And as you get more confident, you can start experimenting with more complex idioms.
The ones that really capture the essence of French culture.
And don't be afraid to make mistakes. That's all part of the learning process.
Absolutely. In fact, sometimes those mistakes can lead to the most memorable conversations.
They really can. So embrace those awkward moments and just have fun with it.
Now, speaking of fun, I have a little challenge for you, our listeners.
Ooh, I love a good challenge.
As you're practicing your French and exploring these idioms, I want you to think about the expressions in your own language.
Are there any that are similar to the French ones?
Or maybe some that are completely unique to your culture.
It's a great way to make connections between languages and see how different cultures express themselves.
And who knows, you might even learn something new about your own language in the process.
It's all about expanding our horizons and appreciating the beauty of human expression.
Well said. So as we wrap up our deep dive into French idioms and colloquialisms, I just want to encourage you to keep exploring, keep practicing, and most importantly, keep having fun with the language.
Because when you embrace the quirks and the humor of a language, that's when it truly comes alive.
And that's what makes the journey so rewarding. Thanks for joining us.
Au revoir.